Solver Politics. We're in the KHTS studio right now with some seriously cool co-hosts and guests. First and foremost, we got Mark Murphy with us.
Rock on, you Democrats. We will win with the blue wave.
Oh, my goodness. We're also joined in the studio by a scholar and a gentleman, the local superhero, Jim Backer.
Nice to see you guys.
Woo!
We're talking about a visionary here.
That was super unenthusiastic, Jim. We're going to work on that.
Okay,
You know what I'm
right,
saying?
okay,
And we're going to
right.
give you a really cool soundbite where, like, people start exploding with arena rock behind you, like cheering and everything. But today's an awesome show. We're going to get through the national stuff really, really fast because Jim Backer and his project is actually seriously cool. And it's one of these fusion projects that I think a lot of your progressive Democrats out there are going to be really wanting to hear a lot about. And I think, obviously, all of us capitalist-loving people of a more conservative bent are definitely digging as well. And it really raises a ton of questions in my little noodle here about how on earth he's getting it done while the rest of us can't even build a shed without city council coming to knock on our door. So, anyway, before we go anywhere, just to clear things up and to state this one last time, there is no blue wave coming. There is no blue wave coming.
And we still haven't figured out how anybody knew 65 girls in high school, but some people did.
So just we have to talk about the elephant in the room here, and we're going to do it in less than 90 seconds. But basically, all of us have heard the latest going-ons with the Brett Kavanaugh hearing. First, they tried to postpone it by saying that he wasn't releasing all these documents, but that was a false flag argument. Why? For those of you that have not been following this, is because if I were the lawyer of Charles Manson and I were called to be a Supreme Court judge, okay, and the people on the Senate Judiciary Committee that didn't like me said, you must release the transcripts of your conversations with Charles Manson, I would look at them and I would say, thou fool, you knowest that I'm a lawyer and that is protected under attorney-client privilege, just like Tom Hanks in what was that cool spy movie? You like spy movies.
Well, I like times, but I think the fact that you've related Brett Kavanaugh and Charles Manson into the same sentence is just fabulous.
Come on, just follow my example
Put
here.
Put that together and get your noodle around it.
No, Bridge of Spies. So just like Tom Hanks told the CIA in Bridge of Spies, no.
And yes, that was a true story.
That was a true story, yes.
And yes, part of my family knows a little bit more about it than they should.
Okay, well, that's going to be a cool story for a different day. So just like Tom Hanks in Bridge of Spies could not tell the CIA because he was morally obligated to maintain his attorney-client privilege, Brett Kavanaugh is not morally obligated, and he should not disclose his conversations with the president and the counselors in the White House. The Democrats knew that, and they're taking advantage of it to try and sully his name. Once that didn't work, all right, all of a sudden...
What a view to have.
Yes, it's actually called the constitutionally informed view that has kept us with one constitution while France has had 14 of them in the same 200 and whatever years.
Some of them were cool. They took off the heads of the elected officials.
And, dude,
you know, there's some merit to that occasionally.
I do have to say, something was lost when the Cold War was won. And something was lost when they took away hangings and guillotines in public.
That's
you know
true.
what I'm saying?
We
you know, it's just a little bit was lost there.
We may
all
get
right?
a knock at the door during this broadcast.
Yeah, seriously. We were not advocating for that. That was a joke.
No, violence
all right?
is not in our name.
Everybody, you can stop blogging now. All right? So anyway, and this is my fear. This is honestly only my fear. Okay, obviously, people's past need to be considered. I have a problem with all of the obstructionism because I view it as a proxy war against Trump, and I think it's the only intellectually honest view to take, is that this hearing is a proxy war against Trump. The first 200 and some odd appointees to the Supreme Court didn't even get a hearing because the Senate was just respectful of the office of the presidency and the process of vetting that was done. That has been lost, and this is why I think it has to relate with no blue wave coming, is because Tip O'Neill, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because he was a Democrat, and you got bragging rights here.
Oh, yeah, he was one of the finest, smartest intellectuals that existed.
Okay.
He was Irish.
But he was Irish, yeah. He was the only Speaker of the House to do 5 consecutive terms. Or no, not 5 consecutive terms, but like 5 terms of Speaker of the House, right? Which is a monumental feat in Washington. And he had this phrase that was, but I think no longer is, true, but it's quoted a lot, where he said, all politics are local. that at the end of the day, all politics are local. And that's why congressmen can't just disappear into Washington. They have to go home and do their town halls. They have to go home and be seen in public, kissing babies, shaking hands, so on and so forth. I submit that now all politics are national, and that's why Katie Hill is avoiding this show. She's waiting and hoping that she doesn't get asked by local people about local events because she wants to ride the anti-Trump hatred.
I would completely agree from a Democratic view. I want to see Katie Hill be willing to get out and speak on this show because I think she's afraid. What's a 1-hour debate up in Palmdale, Lancaster doing between her and Knight? That doesn't even do any more than introduce the two of them.
I'll tell you what it's doing now. I can understand the reasoning behind it, why a campaign manager might say to avoid endemic media. Because at the end of the day, if you've got a surfboard that's going to ride, if you got a longboard and it's meant to ride big waves, you know what I'm saying? You're not going to get on a shortboard to start shredding the small ones. All right.
Yeah.
So it seems like to me, is trying to ride the anti-Trump wave. But this is why I say no blue wave is coming. Okay. And these are two different wave analogies.
Well, before you even get there on that blue wave coming, I completely agree with you. She's trying to avoid it by sticking strictly with the national, and we need to have a
because who's covering her? Vice this weekend?
Yeah,
LA
come on,
Times?
National, LA Times. Let's get in here and talk the local politics. Let's have the courage to come here and talk about what's going on in this community. Because one of the reasons that I love Jim Backer is he has successfully navigated working with a local city council and pulled in state funds, national funds, et cetera, to create an innovative future. You don't get that by simply working on the national circuit. You focus on local problems and you fix them.
See, this is why I like, Mark, did you like that very unashamed and unabashed segue there? You know what I'm saying?
He's my man.
Into Jim Backerness, yeah.
Who is, by fact, I believe, a conservative. So, I will bow in this case because I don't know anybody who could do what you've accomplished in construction.
Okay, hey, wait, before we talk about Jim, and it's really cool, I noticed that he wore a blue and red shirt today.
Smart man.
That was a very good symbolic
My wife said
move.
I couldn't talk about politics.
Okay, yeah. You're dead on arrival here, but it's going to happen. We will squeeze it out of you, all right? Why? Because now all politics are national. You know what I'm saying? And I do notice that bigger and bigger things, like we'll talk about later, such as the gas tax, are now threatening local issues.
Exactly.
The state legislation on solar panels will making it so city council can't get rid of those big ugly behemoths off the side of Soledad Canyon. Yeah. And we're spending, what was it? I think Cameron Smythe was telling me it was like $2 or $3 million of our budget just had to go to getting rid of grass in all of the common areas because the state said we can no longer have grass in the common areas that aren't parks.
Yeah, grass that we just
So anyway,
recently.
I think now we know no blue wave is coming. I'm just going to get in before it's 7:14, and we're going to now start talking about Jim and this awesome project. So here, let me introduce him really fast. Jim Backer, just so you guys know, if you just tuned in, Jim Backer is one of the developers, all right, behind Vista Canyon, which is a big, huge new project that, for lack of a better term, is going to be in the riverbed. So Scope must be loving this guy. And you have to look at this super cool. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, I mean, you gotta see some of this literature that he's totally come up with for us. I'm going to read straight from this and tell you exactly what's going on here. That this is the first, oh man, Jim, where is it? Oh, here it is. Vista Canyon is the first truly car optional. How do you like that buzzword? Car optional commercial, residential, and recreational community ever conceived in Southern California with embedded rail and bus transit terminals. He's going to try and do what the developers down on Wilshire Boulevard couldn't do in the 50s when they were building the Miracle Mile and actually make a mass transit friendly city.
Yeah, he actually took a train station that was in the wrong place that has no support, and you hate going to it because you're kind of squeezing yourself off the platform, and he's putting it so you could actually walk to it from your home, have protection from the elements, and get a cup of coffee.
Take it away here, Mark.
Wow.
Give us the lowdown on how would you describe this to the listeners. What's this little mini city? A city within a city?
I think this is not only a city within a city, this is reimagining, re-envisioning a lot of concepts of construction and living that takes into account the environment, doing water reclamation, using land that basically was not being used at all, trying to find a way to make it so you can live and work in the same location or have easy access to other places, and more importantly, take a part of this city, Canyon Country, which we sometimes refer to as Kentucky, and transform it into an innovative Universal Studios of the future. And Jim has successfully done something, and I got to tell you, it's exciting. Now, for those of you trying to get a perspective, if you're driving down up the 14 freeway towards Palmdale, you look to your right just before you come to Sand Canyon. You've just passed the whole area of Via Princesa. You look to your right, you see this strange monstrosity of concrete that rises out of the side of the river. And that is the heart of Jim's new city. So, Jim, maybe you should take us to the next level and explain what does all that mean?
Sure. Well, we are developing the original property where the Mitchell family settled in 1860.
Wow.
And so,
Bragging rights.
Since I'm a history major, I have to get that in. But where the oak trees are on the eastern end of our property is where the Mitchells lived. And when we came across this property back in 2004, 2005, we thought we were just going to build a couple hundred homes or get it set up for that and go on our way. And we were really challenged by both the community and
So you were
the city.
traditionally boring, like D.R. Horton and Lennar developer,
so
right?
it would have
Okay,
been
cool.
kind of more, we would have had beautiful oak trees and some nice things, but it would have been more of a residential-only development. And one of the things that came out of our community outreach was the need to have jobs in Canyon Country, to have restaurants in Canyon Country. And
Yeah, dude, because I got to say, I'm looking at these pictures, and this looks like all the cool crap, the architecture and the city planning majors that I went to in college that painted on their pants in the morning and had like waves as big as like the cartoon heroes. This looks like what all the guys at Google wish they could go to work in. You know what I'm saying?
well, we'd love to have them come go to work there too. Just so that's a great idea. Let's go with that
Take a
idea.
look at this. It's the whole concept of living and working in the same community, walking from there. You have 1,100 plus homes.
Right.
You're leasing and selling.
Yep.
And tell us how you integrated the retail, the commercial together, because that's pretty cool.
Well, what you do in a big project like this is you go get help quickly, and so we went to an architectural firm named Johnson Fain Partners down in Los Angeles, who I had worked with about 25 years ago when I was involved in Town Center Drive for Newhall Land in Valencia, and so we went to them and kind of laid out some of our ideas, shared what we were trying to accomplish, really looked at each of the things that surrounded us. We had a railroad on one side, the river and the freeway on the other side.
Beautiful.
Homes to our west, a school to our east. And so we kind of had to look at how we integrate with them. And they came back with a series of ideas and gave us about 5 different ways to approach the project. And one of the things I feel that we probably did the best about were 2 things. One is we included the city from day one. So the first time we saw
Because if you don't, they're going to feel left out and start making your life
but
pretty
developers
bad, right?
have done that historically too. The developers sometimes they hide the plan and they show the plan, they take it back. And so we did the 5, asked them for 5 plans. The city saw them the same day we did. And we all kind of absorbed what we liked and didn't like about those plans, and then came back later and presented the 2 that everybody liked and said, okay, how do we get down to kind of a plan to go forward? The second thing we did, which I liked, was we gave ourselves kind of a design philosophy where we looked at the 5 things we were trying to accomplish with this project, as opposed to just, do the best we can, make money, do whatever. And so we had things like respect the history, deal with sustainability, create a place. And we also really wanted it to be innovative. So that was going to be something we would pursue as far as we could go.
Okay, so you're touching on exactly what I wanted to talk about today. For those of you that just tuned in, basically Jim Backer is designing Vista Canyon. It's going to literally be like a city within a city built along the river corridor next to the 14 freeway and Soledad Canyon Road. Basically, when you're looking over to the left there and you see what is pretty much just a giant riverbed. Okay, and at least he's shooting it straight, not like the Villa Metro people who call it Valencia, even though it's right in the middle of Canyon Country. But it really does look. I mean, this looks really cool, and it seems to me. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I were to put your development into one sentence, I would say this is going to be a miniature metropolis in which you can work, have fun, and live all in the same community.
Correct.
almost kind of like medieval Europe. And I'm not even saying that like, to be disparaging. I'm
That's
saying
a good analogy.
to me this reeks of and looks like modernized medieval Europe where you literally can just go everywhere. Now, okay, so you're talking about respecting history. First off, I didn't know about this Mitchell family thing. That's way cool. Just give me the 30 seconds on the Mitchell family. What is this?
So Thomas Mitchell was a colonel in the U.S. Army. He came out here in 1860. He made money all the ways he could with
So he was
land.
with the Beals Cut guys then, right?
Well, probably a little bit after them, I think.
Okay.
And, but he was a rancher, farmer. He was a big beekeeper. And his family owned that property until 1947. And then we haven't verified this yet, but there was a family from the Santa Clarita Valley that bought it then, and then we think we're the third owners since 1860.
We think.
Yeah, we believe. We're
So
not
some guy
confirmed.
disappeared, and we don't know where he
We
went.
haven't completely verified, but we think we're the third. So.
Okay, cool. Rock on.
I was at church with some of the local Mitchell family descendants, and I got to tell you, he has shown great respect for what they stand for.
Okay.
Because we're talking about the Sulphur Springs Elementary School. That was the beginning of a really education in this
They
county.
started it on our property in their
It's right
kitchen.
there. He's showing respect for it, which I think trying to negotiate with the family.
Well, what did
That's
you encase
tough.
in wax figurines, Mr. Mitchell, and put him in the original cabin for all to
No,
see, or what,
no.
what's going
The
on
horse.
here?
Actually,
did the
though,
horse.
there's so part of the property is the Mitchell family cemetery. So on the
get
north
out.
side of
Oh,
the
it's
river,
real.
right
It's
next
real.
to the
I've been there. It's a
freeway,
scouting
is a cemetery, and we are going to renovate the cemetery. And two of the family members have already gone out and bought and purchased and delivered a granite headstone for all the family members that are buried there.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
These two men in their 70s drove it from Montrose, Colorado to here.
All right. I like your ageist comment. That was great. So, no, I'm just kidding. So, anyway.
But one thing he's done
Yeah.
is to build a city in a place that no one said was usable.
Well, yeah,
and
that's
everybody
what-
talks about the flooding. Tell us how you did that. 'cause
That's literally my next worry because I got to tell you, I was on Sand Canyon after they'd shut it down, having visited my parents, and my cell phone was off because there's no reception. And I didn't get that little alert saying you got to get out of the canyon because the water's coming. And next thing I know, I'm in 18 inches deep water, and it had been 20 minutes later, my car would have been washed away with my two kids inside because all of the fires had taken away the ground cover, and it was brutal in that canyon. So I've seen. I like how you're referring to the wash or the river as the river corridor. Scope must love you, but
this is New Orleans on a microcosm.
yeah. So how do you deal with this? Because I know people always talk about, those 50-year storms, those 100-year storms. 9 out of 10 years, it's fine, and I could see a simple sump pump, working, okay? But if the Mulholland Dam, okay, was not Mulholland built, but if the St. Francis Dam disaster was up until recently like the second or third most costliest disaster, it had to do with large volumes of water in very unpredictable California geography, causing large-scale disaster. How do you mitigate and plan something like this, knowing what we know now with more red tape than Mulholland ever had? You got 90 seconds for that.
Well, my partner, Glenn Adamick, would be much better explaining this than I am, but you work with Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Fish and Game from California, and there are a lot of predetermined levels. So they have a deal called the Q cap, the 100-year flood, and you measure all those things with your hydrologist, and ours happens to be PACE systems, and so they do all of the analogies and hydrology studies. Then you have to get your property above those levels. And
Okay.
so we raised our property about an average of 7 feet across the property. Parts of our
hauling
property
dirt.
were in the floodplain, like you
Okay.
say. They were low, and then some were outside the floodplain, but we raised about an average of 7 to get outside.
But
Okay.
it's your levees. Those are incredible.
Oh, yeah, we
For
love
what
levees.
What you built.
Yeah. Those
So do
are
people
solid.
down in New Orleans. So, okay, so anyway, check this out. Way back in the day, P.T. Barnum had so much faith in the engineering of the Brooklyn Bridge that when people wouldn't walk across it, he put his elephants on it just to prove it worked. We're going to give you a little elephant question here when we come back from this break. This is Problem Solver Politics at 7:25.
Daily Imprints is the premier one-stop shop for custom embroidery, screen printing, and promotional products in the Santa Clarita Valley. Owners Joe and Dana have provided KHTS with quality embroidered company shirts for over 3 years. If it's new business cards or promotional products you need to enhance your image, Daily Imprints is the choice for you. Located on Lyons Avenue, stop by or call today, 661-678-0508.
There are times when nothing else will do because you know exactly what you want. You want the Alamo, the taste of true Mexican cooking at its best. At Alamo, you're treated to a taste that is truly Mexican with an atmosphere to match. Enjoy a Cadillac margarita, try a mucho burrito, or sizzling fajitas. Voted the best Mexican food in the SCV and a favorite of former supervisor Mike Antonovich. Alamo Rotisserie in Granary Square, serving Santa Clarita for over 30 years.
In times of economic uncertainty and chaos, your money means nothing. You may not even be able to get it from your bank or ATM. And the money you do have in the stock market will go down and down. What you can bank on is gold and silver. Gold and silver have been a reliable and trusted form of currency for thousands of years. Gold and silver have never been worth zero, and typically gold holds its value during economic turmoil. Call the Gold Hotline now and learn how to protect your money and your assets with gold and silver. And learn how to set up a new IRA or roll over your current one into a gold-backed IRA. Protect your money from the next market crash with gold and silver. Call now for your free gold guide.
800-296-1334. 800-296-1334. 800-296-1334. That's 800-296-1334.
Hometown. KHTS Breaking News.
This is Michael Brown with KHTS News, reporting on the Charlie Fire, which started around 2:30 p.m. Saturday near Charlie Canyon and Tapia Canyon in Castaic. As of 7:30 Sunday morning, the blaze was 10% contained, with over 3,300 acres burned. For road closures and the latest on evacuations and other updated information, go to hometownstation.com or check out our Facebook page at KHTS Radio.
Your hometown station. KHTS AM 1220 and the new 98.1 FM.
All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardon Ellis, and we're in the studio with Mark Murphy and Jim Backer, who's the stud developer who is making the Vista Canyon project. We were just talking about the sustainability of the project, the environmentalism of the project. He's got all kinds of cool water reclamation going on. He's moving a train station. I mean, that's a pretty big feat in and of itself, to not only just get a train station, but to move an existing one. And then we've got to get into the nitty-gritty of how the gas tax, the controversial gas tax that is the subject of all the anti-Katie Hill Super PAC ads and all those annoying emails you get from Carl DeMaio about 3 times a day. You know what I'm saying? So that's actually hitting home here, something to the tune of about $9 million, which is a pretty big deal. So first, on the other side of the commercial break, you talked a lot about the pride that you had in the hipness of this Vista Canyon project. And for those of you guys that are tuning in, you got to check out Facebook Live, because you can see that this is basically, for lack of a better term, a city within a city where you can work, play, and live in a very kind of hip and luxurious Bernie Sanders loving lifestyle, you know what I'm saying? In a, quote, car optional community, okay? So you'll have plenty of, Facebook and Instagram cred.
This is a miniature Universal City Walk right here in the heart of Canyon Country. It will put Valencia to shame. It will take the whole thing that you did in an earlier life and just make it passé.
Yeah. So now
this is new.
Now he is building in the middle of the riverbed, though, and we're all very uniquely aware of how crazily unpredictable the flooding and the water situation is in California. We're either oozing out our ears and bursting dams and having disasters, or else we're going through 5-year droughts. You know what I'm saying? Well, we're fighting each other for a bottle of water in the quad at Hart High, all right? So he has assured us that his hydrologist, all right, which sounds like the woman that wears a lab coat, all right, over in the Valencia Town Center, and takes care of your blackheads for you before she sells you a face cream. But anyway, his hydrologist has assured us
not on the show.
Yeah, his hydrologist has assured us that we're not all going to get washed away. And I did make an analogy that the Brooklyn Bridge was so engineered flawlessly and mathematically correct, but looked so different because it was a suspension bridge. And up until then, suspension bridges were not ever really seen in public or trusted by the community. So a big problem with the Brooklyn Bridge was nobody would walk across it. So P.T. Barnum actually went on his elephants and crossed the Brooklyn Bridge so people would actually start trusting it. So at this point, I'm looking at the wash, dude, and I'm saying, I don't know, man. I don't want my house to blow away. But I'm trusting you got a P.T. Barnum moment for me. You know what I'm saying? What's the data that shows that we're not getting washed away? And then you mentioned reclamation, which just makes me think of Waterworld when they were drinking their own urine.
You're talking about Waterworld or Soylent Green? I mean, we're talking,
one of those.
Yeah.
So hit me with the hipness of the science of your new community.
So the river that is part of our property. I mean, we own part of the river that we will then deed to the city. That's part of our approval process. And we create an 8-foot wide mixture of soil and cement to create our barrier. That's 14 feet underground, 14 feet above ground. So that's 28 feet.
That's solid.
And we set it 8 foot wide. When it was all laid down, it was 8 foot wide. And so it's pretty strong.
So you're basically
structure.
building a levee system.
We're building a levee system. And then on outside of that, we have dirt that'll get planted here sometime in the next year that'll basically make the river more look like the river of old. So it'll be planted, and the idea is that someday, if it was really the flood that you speak of, some of that would get washed away that we could then replace, but the structure, the 8-foot wide structure, would stay in place. So that's kind of how we dealt with the river, and we raised it about 7 feet. On the water reclamation plant, so one of the things we looked at, we actually met with an LA environmental activist years ago when we were looking at this project, because we felt it was important to have different viewpoints from our own. Even though we had over 100 meetings in the community and got plenty of viewpoints that were not our own, but we tried to work those into our project.
Hashtag resistance.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
But I also think we treated those people with the respect they deserve. They gave us a lot of great ideas. We tried to incorporate those into the project. We couldn't do everything, and that's just the reality, that we could not put every single idea into this. But the reclamation plant came from this person that we met with in LA and said, hey, do the reclamation plant. And so essentially what we're doing is we're taking the sewer, and we're treating the liquid portion of that only 3 times, and then we are going to redistribute that on our property in purple pipe that you see out there in the community. We will use about 1/3 of it, and 2/3 of it will go off-site that the CLWA, which is now SCV Water, will utilize. And so
wait. So what's that 1/3? Are we like watering the grass?
Yes, we're watering the grass. We have a park, as you know.
Okay, so hold on.
property.
So I'm going to go to like your Trader Joe's that you build in there and eat my organic stuff and have my organic soda. I'm going to go to the bathroom, and it's going to be in the drip system to the California native bottle brush tree in the front of my house.
There you go. That's
Rock
it.
on. That's
Isn't
actually
that
kind
not
of
cool?
That's
And you mentioned you're going to use a certain percentage. The rest of it is available to take care of the local other neighborhoods.
Right. So then CLWA, we went to them a long time ago and set up a system with them where they would take the balance. So the bottom line on this plant, we create more water on an annual basis than our community uses in its entirety.
So you're like the people that have solar panels that are actually giving back into the system.
That's right. So we're net zero on water, and we're trying to get there on power right now. We're not all the way there yet. We've got a lot looking at solar. We've looked at wind, some of these smaller wind turbines. We've looked at a microgrid. We've looked at these battery systems. And so if we could be net zero on water and net zero on power, I'm not sure there'd be a community like us in the United States.
Yeah, that's a pretty audacious claim. So quickly back to this purple water pipe you got going on. So you're basically doing what the gray water recyclers in irrigation hope to do. Mm-hmm. So when there's gray water discharge out of sinks and washing machines and so on and so forth, they do a single step to basically take out like the giardia or whatever's in there, and then they're squirting it on the avocado trees. But you're actually doing this with even septic water.
Well, ours is coming out of the sewer system, so we have a sewer pipe that feeds our plant, and like I said, only the liquid portion, the fun stuff, keeps going. That we don't get
fun
that
stuff.
The fun stuff. The
so
other
next
stuff in
time
the
I'm
sewer.
gonna have an explicative on the show, I'm just gonna say, "Holy fun stuff." You know what I'm saying? All right, okay.
Well, wait a second. As members of the scouting community, and Jim's son just got his Eagle Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout. I think you are
I'm
an Eagle Scout. So
yeah.
we got Eagle Scout. We believe in this whole community thing, and we believe in nature and taking care of it, utilizing it, and also at the same time putting it together in a way that's beautiful. You have done something with oak trees, which at times can be our nemesis, but it's also what this community sort of been identified with. What did you do that's so unique?
Well, we unfortunately we lost a few oak trees we had a knoll in the middle of our project, and some of the oak trees there grew at an angle, and unfortunately,
not every one of them can stay.
Yeah,
not every one of them can stay. I get that.
But don't worry, we did get our penalty, and we're in the process. We have 15 beautiful specimen oak trees on our property right now. We're going to plant about another 500 on the property in various places.
500 plus oak trees.
Plus, we have the legacy trees that from back to the Mitchell days that are planted throughout our property. If you look at our plan, this oak tree over here we designed around, so that stays on the west end. All these oak trees here on the east end stay, and then we're going to try to add to it.
Okay, by the way,
what Jim is pointing to is along the project they have a series of trees, and if you're driving along the freeway now, you can look to the right and see this kind of green belt on the way to Sulphur Springs, and that green belt is the beginnings of his oak tree empire.
Yeah, and for those of you that are just tuning in or unfamiliar with California and, well, not even California, Santa Clarita and its oak trees, I mean, the oak tree is in the Santa Clarita seal because it kind of definitely defines a lot of the topography, geography, and the flora of our city. It's very important to us. But legally, it's an absolute nightmare and a big frustration because I don't know a single person who's not an environmentalist in Santa Clarita. Like, all of us want clean rivers. It's music to our ears, whether you're left, right, or center, that you're doing this reclamation project. But a huge frustration I have is it's like when Walmart wanted to get built, they're like, oh, it's only $25,000 a tree to rip out? Fine, boom, off with their heads. Yeah. We're going to pay for it. And then I'm driving up Sierra Highway, and to the right, before you get to the Newhall Pass, I'm just watching them just rip down and grade 1,500 of these trees or however many there are. And it's frustrating to me when I'm like, I wanted to build a house in Newhall in between and amongst the oak trees because I bought a house that was shaded 2/3 by oak trees, and I loved it. But then when I went in there to get plans, they're like, oh, you can't within the drip line, not within 20 feet of where, an oak tree pellet fell once, and it's a frustration that there's this double standard that I can't look at an oak tree wrong without, having to pay a fine to the city, while big developers can just go in and mow them down like crazy. Yeah. So the fact that you're actually, of your own volition, putting so much attention and care into this oak tree thing, I think is a very good, omen of, I don't know, just being true to form and true to the actual, mission statement of being, I don't know what you'd call it, green, responsible, sustainable, whatever you want to call it, right?
But he even goes beyond that. What I love, the part about is creating this ability to live and work in your immediate building environment. I picture our young generation being able to, trot downstairs, or
the generation that's in its 6th year of community college, still working part-time at Sparta.
Yeah, exactly. The ones who are going to take care of the rest of us boomers and make sure that we have pablum and also our diapers changed. So that these are the ones who will make certain that they'll go down, they'll have their Starbucks, they'll do their retail stopping, they'll go upstairs, they'll work for us, make all the money so that we can continue in our great life. Then they will walk the 15, 20 feet to their home, which is about a 10 by 10 square foot box. But more importantly, they will have beautiful homes, but they can also hop on a train and go somewhere. This is like Europe. This is the way it was supposed to be. And we got so far away from that.
Wow. Did the Democratic Socialists just say, oh, this is like Europe. This is the way it was supposed to be?
I got to bring a little bit of that in here, particularly
Stalin would be proud.
He has done a fantastic job.
You're good with it.
You're good at it. I bring these things in. But, Jim, talk a little bit about this live-work concept.
Well, one of the things, if you just look at a little bit of basic geography, we're about a mile wide and a quarter mile deep. Our property, and so if you split down the middle, which is where the town center is, you're no more than a half mile away the farthest point. So that's pretty good. and the quarter mile from the river to the railroad is even better. So you've got a really nice walking area. We've got about 10 miles of trails when you consider everything walking around the property.
By the way, I Googled how deep the New Orleans levees are that we're going to be walking along, like you say.
Yeah.
And they were 14 meters. I mean, they were 14 feet. So you're building it.
You're feeling better?
Okay, so I'm like, okay, those levees didn't work, but they were holding back an ocean. Okay, so fine. You're a hydrologist. All right. At least he's passing my Google Wikipedia test right now, all right?
Look at the image of this city, and the train station that feeds off this.
I
this
get
is
it.
not canyon country.
No, I get it, but then I also look at those pictures before they build the high schools. It never ends up looking like that. But I actually believe this guy.
We're doing the best we can. This one's going to look like that. But I will say, one of the things you asked earlier was, how do we do this with the different agencies? And that's one of the critical deals. And the city, really after we went through all these different plans I mentioned earlier, the city decided to move the Via Princesa Metrolink station to our site, and so they're fully invested.
Now, what's the
in that
reasoning
decision.
behind that, though? Because my heart breaks. I've lived in New York City, and I love mass transit. I love the spontaneous interactions it gives people, and this is my only soapbox. But one of the things that is stinky about suburbia is a social scientist did a study once, and he said, why generally do rural people report higher amounts of happiness and urban people report higher amounts of happiness, while the suburban elite that make the most money report least? And it had nothing to do with the amount of money they made. It had nothing to do with their skin color, with their age, any of that. It was because in urban environments and in rural environments, you get a lot of what are called spontaneous interactions, where you make friends and you meet people of like-minded individuals because you accidentally bump into them. But in suburbia, we don't. We get in our private garage in our private car to drive to our private parking facility. I'm a little bit excited about this Vista Canyon because it seems like somebody living there could have a lot of really fun, spontaneous interactions, and that's what I love about mass transit. You meet people on the train and in the subway when you're in New York City, even in some parts of LA, except for they're usually just like urinating on the wall and screaming to the other guy that's like 5 trains away. But the mass transit aspect of this, I dig. The only problem is in California, mass transit's never really taken hold, but it's interesting to me that they're moving it to your site here. What's the reasoning behind taking it away from Via Princesa where it is right now instead of just building a second one where you are?
Well, Santa Clarita already has 3 of the 7 Antelope Valley Line stations. And so to have a 4th might be difficult. I think there's part of that with the timing, but one of the reasons that the city wanted to do that is the Via Princesa happened in 1994 after the earthquake. I actually leased the land to MTA from my days at Newhall Land.
Now you're just bragging.
There you go. I'm just bragging, totally. And but it was just it's kind of ironic, though, the whole circle that goes around. But generally speaking, to your question, they can have about 400 parking spaces at that station. You have to walk across the rail line to get on the southbound station, which is a big problem. And so that's just in rail line, not what you want to do. And then probably the biggest thing is you have to drive there to get on. I mean, very few people can walk there or feel comfortable walking off of Via Princesa.
It's like the Whole Foods parking lot. Like, you might get in a fight in the parking lot over that space if it's like 7:30 in the morning because there's a bunch of other people that are trying to get that space too.
It's not a spot that I like going to, and more importantly, you're totally exposed. It's not comfortable. I always felt like I was going to be pushed off the platform onto this, or maybe I was going to push somebody. But anyway, the whole idea is it was not comfortable. You have envisioned a concept of a station that looks extremely attractive.
Yeah, hit us.
We go from 400 spaces there to 750 dedicated to Metrolink at our site. Plus, you've got all the surrounding people that can just walk there. There'll be drop-off points. We definitely plan to have a little station plaza, we call it. I'll show you here, this one right here.
Oh, I love this site.
So this is a covered, this is kind of our California version of a train station. I was at Union Station in Denver a couple of years ago. They got renovated and came back and was all excited. My architect said, Jim, you're in California. Yeah. We're going to do this outside. And but our idea is to make it a station of old, kind of like Mark was saying, you have your coffee, you see your friends.
Basically, this looks like Grand Central Station if it didn't have walls on the side.
Well, this is what you run into in Europe. In my many years living in Europe, this is what you saw, and it was kind of cool because you did have your little restaurants, your cafes, your newsstands, your retail places there. You had some openings, but you also had that interaction with people that was kind of cool. Something's different. But
so how did you get this through all the red tape? And
yeah.
I've seen so many really cool projects come across this table in this radio show. How is it that you were pulling off a freaking train station mixed with a urine processing plant that's going to be watering the trees mixed with it? Like, how did you do this?
Well, one other thing. You have 3 major exits plus a backup exit for people to pour out onto the freeway with like a couple rights and a right and they're on. And at the same time, going in all 3 different directions, nobody gets that kind of access.
Well, we're coming from Lost Canyon on the west end, which is the same Lost Canyon that goes up to serve the shopping center, Kohl's and Target up there. Also to Jake's Way, and then we're building a bridge across the river that'll connect to Soledad underneath that existing space at the freeway, and then we have our access from Sand Canyon and Lost Canyon.
Sulphur Springs, you've got access to all the various elements.
But that one obviously got a lot of attention because the Sand Canyon folks were sensitive about the Sulphur Springs elementary school as we are. Yeah, but as we are too, and you got elementary kids, and you got to make that work. So we've been working through those ideas. And that's really one of the key things. And I would say, you asked how we did it. I got 2 great partners, Glenn Adamick and Steve Valenciano, that have really been terrific in this whole process of helping us not only consider things, envision things, but also work with folks. Glenn used to work with the city. Glenn has tremendous abilities in the entitlement field to understand all the different nuances and legal ramifications.
Okay, so here's a little question. I'm going to step back and kind of view this a little bit more from space. Maybe not space, but like the stratosphere. Before we talk about the taxation of this in the last minute that we got here, how is this going to change life in Santa Clarita? Because every time a big thing like this happens, when they built the Miracle Mile down in Wilshire Boulevard, it converted Los Angeles from a mass transit city to a car-based city. There were winners and there were losers. So in 1 minute, we'll talk about this on the other side of the commercial break too, but in 1 minute, if you could say in one sentence how this will change Santa Clarita, how will Vista Canyon change either the culture, the lifestyle, or the whatever of Santa Clarita?
Well, we believe that it sets Santa Clarita apart a little bit from all the things that we've talked about, the sustainability, the way we're trying to go about it. I think we're trying to get more jobs to the east side.
I don't care what you're trying to do. How's it going to change our life?
Well, I think that it changes your life because it gives you more options than you had before. Right now, you can get on the freeway and live in that mess or go to Via Princesa, which works just fine. But the idea that we would have is you could live at Vista Canyon, like we said before, walk down to the train station. Now you can get to Burbank Airport off the train. It's becoming more useful to your life. But I think having sustainability in your everyday life is something that I think people will appreciate, even going back to your rural and urban comparison.
Okay, cool. He did an awesome job of dodging the question, but I don't have time to grill him. So we're going to do that on the other side of the commercial break. This is Problem Solver Politics at 748.
Every year, thousands of local children, teens, and adults receive treatment at the Child and Family Center for depression, anger, anxiety, abuse, thoughts of suicide, and drug and alcohol addictions. Our professional staff provides outpatient services at office locations, in the home, the community, and on many elementary, junior, and high school campuses throughout our valley. If you need help, contact Child and Family Center at 259-9439 or childfamilycenter.org. Improving lives, one family at a time.
Men, are you feeling tired, stressed, or just don't have the energy you used to? Did you know this could be related to decreased testosterone levels? Luckily, there's a safe, effective solution. Weeder Prime helps support healthy testosterone levels with clinically tested key ingredients. Just 2 capsules of Weeder Prime each day can help change your mood, energy, focus, body fat, and lean muscle. Feel the way you felt 10, 20, even 30 years ago. Rediscover your Prime with Weeder Prime. To find a retailer near you, visit WeederPrime.com. That's WEIDER Prime.com.
Santa Clarita Philharmonic has begun its season of free concerts. The SCP is a nonprofit community-based volunteer symphony orchestra comprised of local musicians from throughout the Santa Clarita Valley who are dedicated to providing quality classical music for the residents of the Santa Clarita Valley. Like the Santa Clarita Philharmonic on Facebook or visit santaclaritaphilharmonic.org for more information.
Hometown. KHTS Breaking News.
This is Michael Brown with KHTS News, reporting on the Charlie Fire, which started around 2:30 p.m. Saturday near Charlie Canyon and Tapia Canyon in Castaic. As of 7:30 Sunday morning, the blaze was 10% contained, with over 3,300 acres burned. For road closures and the latest on evacuations and other updated information, go to hometownstation.com or check out our Facebook page at KHTS Radio.
Your hometown station.
KHTS AM 1220 and the new 98.1 FM.
All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. We're in the studios here with Mark Murphy and Jim Backer, the guy who's large and in charge, taking care of the development of the new Vista Canyon project.
Amen. This is fantastic. Envisioning for the future and making Canyon Country the place to be.
Yeah, dude, Canyon Country's coming out on top with this one. I got to tell you, I could see this being a very major power shift of both kind of the fun of what people are talking about, the lifestyle, and just the hipness of the valley could very quickly find itself right on Soledad Canyon Road. Who'd have thunk? We thought Mount Asia was going to do it in the 90s.
Yeah, but Cody could actually live upstairs, drop down, get his coffee, go to a restaurant, hop on the train, and earn all that good money for us so he can take care of us in our old retirement.
Yeah, so if I were to simplify this is going Vista Canyon. For those of you that are just tuning in, Jim Backer is in charge of a very large development that's got over 1,100 houses on it, almost 300,000 square feet of rentable commercial space. This looks like, he's giving me the more.
Almost a million.
Almost a million. Okay. Yeah. So he's rubbing the chip off his shoulder right now. And
he used space that was not being used for anything.
Yes, and I love this. I got to say, I really do love that somebody is figuring out how to harness Mother Nature, build these levees, and create out of this massive scar in the middle of our town. Yeah. When I went to Berlin, there's this beautiful short film that you have to watch that's called The Scar. I don't know the translation in German, but when drone technology was very young, there was this guy who built his own drone, and he took an HD camera, and he just flew the length of the Berlin Wall, all the way from the bottom of the city of Berlin, all the way to the top, and he called it The Scar. And I mean, it is a heart-wrenching but beautiful video, and in kind of just a different way. Obviously, there's no nefariousness to the Santa Clara River, but if you do look at it, it has naturally created a lot of strange natural barriers to both commerce and travel in our city, and he's figured out how to build a city inside of it. So in one sentence, this is a small city within a city in which you can work and play and live all at the same time, and it is super cool. Now, I'd asked him before how it's going to change our life in the valley, and he dodged the question. And then I asked him who are the winners and the losers going to be, and he dodged that one again. So I won't try again, but actually, no, we will one more time. How is this going to change the valley? Because do you think it's going to set a precedent? Do you think it's going to start sucking away commerce from the mall? Do you think people will no longer have an excuse to go somewhere else? What do you think? There's something you're saying in the pamphlets when you're trying to sell that 1 million square footage of space. Yeah. If I were the salesman, I would say, dude, you want to put up your store here because our Apple store is going to get more of these little hipster monkeys coming over here, wanting to get their, their cool hipster apps. You know what I'm saying? Over at my place than over at the mall, all right?
You got to forgive him.
Yeah, I know. Well, I've been here, over 30 years, and traditionally, Canyon Country has always had over 50% of the population of this community.
Yeah, about half. That's why they would have 2 city council seats if we did district voting, yes.
Yes, and yet when you look out across the board of commercial, industrial, retail space, Canyon Country is very underserved on those lines. So I would say, what we're trying to do is bring a little balance to the community. We're not going to do it by ourselves. I mean, 1 million square feet sounds like a lot of commercial space, but the industrial centers are over 20 million feet, in Valencia. But as far as the town center drive area, we're pretty similar to that. We'll probably have more office space at the end if we're successful.
So you're kind of pulling the Trump thing, saying that, my tax plan's going to work because I'm banking on an above 4% growth. You're just kind of thinking that there's room for everybody here, and we're just building more. And it's not necessarily going to be taking away business from other people as much as just filling a void for expansion is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we do up here is we tend to attract people from the San Fernando Valley, Burbank, those areas that either have to move because they've been pushed out of their current space, or we're a better option for them.
Or they're overrun by Democrats.
They moved to Texas. Also. Yeah, those that moved to Texas and Nevada and found that there aren't any jobs and it's a horrible place to live, and those that went to Florida and found out there's humidity, so they decided to come, if they're not in the water, and decided to come
and nobody
back
can drive.
Yeah, they came back for the land of opportunity. So here we are again. You have done something fantastic, but I want to know, how are you going to handle this $8.9 million train station move or creation if, in fact, they put through this Proposition 6, which repeals the tax?
Because you're getting money for that train station from the government, right?
Yeah, it's not really us. It's so the way the train station works is the city has taken that on, the Metrolink station. So they have, and we've worked with them. So we're contributing to the train station through different taxes that we have, a community facilities district that's been set up where a portion of the proceeds of that go to the train station. So there's a lot of ways where we're contributing to the train station. It's not like we're getting it for free, if you like to say.
It's a partnership.
Yeah, and but what you're talking about is there is a provision in the gas tax monies right now that's actually almost $10 million would go to the Vista Canyon station. But if the repeal happens, that $10 million goes away. Now, there are other sources that could replace that. There are other grants that we've been after, about 4 or 5 Tiger grants, they call them, in the federal government side. We haven't been successful.
Looking for free money? Yeah, we've been looking for free money.
But we've been doing
government.
better.
Okay.
Now maybe California doesn't get along with the current administration too well, but that's
so I can't stand the gas tax just because in frustration I look at it and say, the money you need for infrastructure is already there. Like, you have so much money, and I hate it whenever they talk about budgetary constraints. They always shrug their shoulders in the state capitol and say, oh, well, I guess if we don't have a lot of money this year, we'll have to close the state parks and not pay the firefighters. They always go for that first, right? Yeah, there's money everywhere.
This is why the Democrats rule up in Sacramento. But more importantly, we've watched you navigate successfully with this city council, which we have a great deal of respect for.
By the way, you'll notice he said Democrats rule, because he doesn't view it, rule, very monarchist.
Yeah, drop the mic.
Stalin-esque term,
So anyway, come on.
Not
Capitalism
governed, they
rocks.
rule.
Social capitalism rocks. Space Force. Hail Trump. Anyway, but here, let's go. Jim, how in the world have you worked with the city council to make this happen? Because you've accomplished a miracle.
Well, I think, first of all, we have been blessed by working with tremendous staff and working through the different issues with staff. And when we started this project, the planning director at the time was a man named Paul Brotzman, who was definitely should get the kudos of being visionary and very challenging. And so in a good way, challenging us to do something great here, and the same with staff. Whether it's Robert Newman or Ken Striplin or Tom Cole, I mean, all these folks are intimately aware of our project. And how we try to do it traditionally is we try to take our ideas or our issues to them and try to see what we could do that works for both sides. Because, not every law, the way it's set up right now, probably works for both sides. And so we try to make sure that they're protected and we're protected. And I think that's worked pretty well. Fortunately, we have a track record. Haven't gone anywhere in 34 years. So that's part of the reason I think we've been able to be successful.
You're a New Homeland guy.
In the old days.
Old days. All right.
You said something that I've heard reflected by pretty much every city council person I've ever talked to, that the staff is killer. That's what's making it happen in the city, and they all fortunately do give mad respect to that. Speaking of mad respect,
this city rocks.
Yeah, Vista Canyon is going to make it rock even harder, and if you haven't seen it, you got to check this stuff out. So once again, we've had Jim Backer in the studios with us, with Mark Murphy. Check out Vista Canyon. This is Problem Solver Politics. See you next week.